Hello, we've made it. Welcome to the Gameweek 38 Fantasy Show. 370 matches down, just 10 more to go, and just one more deadline for us to worry about. So firstly, as always, let's see what Gameweek 38 has in store for us. And remember, it's a Sunday deadline at 2:30 p.m. UK time, 90 minutes for all 10 matches kick off simultaneously. It really is the best day of the year in FPL. And look at that, there's some really big fixtures in terms of fantasy, including Bournemouth at home to Leicester, Manchester United taking on Aston Villa, Newcastle hosting Everton, and Arsenal away at Southampton. So much still to play for, so much to be decided in the league and in FPL. And joining me in the studio today is FPL Harry and Az from FPL Black Box. Are you both looking forward to the final day? I said it then, it really is one of the best days of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, probably top 3 game weeks of the season, along with Game Week 1 and Boxing Day football, right up there. So yeah, it's a good one with all the games kicking off at the same time.
And it's good, isn't it? Because the fun, I was going to say, it doesn't elongate the pain, does it? If it's over in 90 minutes, if it all goes wrong, or it could be a wonderful 90 minutes.
That's it. And as a Brighton fan, we've got something to play for, going into the final day. So excited for that. It's my favourite day of the season. I love it. There's so much drama, so much excitement. Can't wait.
And, of course, we've all got something to play for because we all want to finish off as strongly as we can in FPL. So to start things off today, we do need to talk about Alexander Isak because he's actually the most transferred out player this week. There's around 400,000 transferred out so far. This is Friday morning we're recording on, so that could change as well. He did miss a defeat at Arsenal with a groin injury, but he has got Everton at home this weekend, as we just saw. So for me personally, it feels really hard to sell him for that fixture.
Yeah, it's a big game for them as well. Again, another team with something to play for. Some kind of vague comments from Eddie Howe, so we don't quite know if he's going to start or not. My guess would be he probably does start if he's available. He's such a big player for them, and obviously missed out the last game and they didn't do very well.
Just to clarify, kind of paraphrase what Eddie Howe has said in his press conference on Friday morning. He said he hasn't trained with the team so far this week, but he's hopeful that he will train on Saturday. So good signs, we think, but that doesn't definitely mean he's going to play, does it?
No, it is just such a big game for them that I think if there's any chance that he can play some minutes in that, I think he will. It's, a win and it's Champions League football for them. And, he's got a whole summer to recover if there are any further issues with it. So I'd be optimistic that he would play. OK, well, one thing that a few people have noticed is his form is maybe not being quite as good in his last 10 matches if we compare it to his previous 10 matches. Harry, did you sell him last week in the end? I did. I sold him for Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that part of the reason was because of this form.
Yes.
And wanting Watkins.
Yeah, it was more wanting Ollie Watkins and the Arsenal away fixture last week I didn't particularly love, which he ended up not featuring in. The form has not been quite what it was earlier on in the season, but with Isak that if he gets it right on his day, he's as good as anyone.
Yeah, I sold him as well for Watkins. I was quite happy in a sadistic sort of way when Isak wasn't in the squad, but I'm worried this week because if he starts in that game, you always fear that he's gonna get some points and some goals. So if I see him in that starting lineup, I'm gonna be worried. Don't buy, don't sell. I think that's the message.
Yeah, I was going to say. So you guys, neither of you have him.
Yeah.
I have him. What would you say? So to me, if you were giving me advice, not that I'd ever listen to you, Az, would you? No, I'm joking.
Wise.
Would you just say literally just stick with your gut? If you've got him at this point, kind of write it out, but maybe make sure your first substitute on your bench is OK if they have to come.
Yeah, I think so. I personally think he either plays or he doesn't. So as long as you've got a decent first sub, if he doesn't play, he can come on. So get your bench in order and then you'll be all right.
Same for you?
Yeah, if you've got Morgan Rogers and Eze and Ismail Assar, who are quite popular first subs this week, if you've got that and Isak, I think you're in a great position.
OK, I think I'll just about hold him then. OK, then, for those that are selling Isak, there are plenty of forwards that you can choose from. So let's take a look at who you've all been bringing in. There's a lot of popular forwards in here. Ollie Watkins, these guys both made the move from Isak to Watkins. When did you do yours, Az?
Last week as well.
So both of you did that move last week as well. He's top of the list. Evan Nielsen is very interesting. He's that little bit cheaper as well. You also own him, don't you, Harry?
Yeah, I brought him a couple of weeks ago when he had Aston Villa at home with one eye on this Leicester at home fixture. At a price of 5.8, if you need to free up money, feels like the forward to go with.
Yeah, he does, and that is a nice price point. Johan Wissa, one of the revelations of the season.
Yeah, and no penalties as well. I mean, to get as many goals as he has done has been absolutely incredible. Some talk around Mbumo potentially moving on at the end of the season. Be interesting to see if they can keep hold of Wissa as well, because there's so many teams who are desperate for a striker. But up to 6.9 million. Yeah, great option for fun day.
And over the last 6 appearances, Wissa is actually the in-form man as well. Would he be top of your shopping list this week if you were looking for a forward?
I think it's pretty close between Evanilson and Wissa. I think the fixture for Evanilson is pretty nice. But the good thing about Wissa is 19 goals. And a lot of players have that 20-goal benchmark as something they're aiming for. And I feel like him and Brian and Burmo, both on 19 goals, will be aiming for that. And not very many Premier League great duos have hit 20 goals combined together in a Premier League season. I think Salah and Mane have done it previously, and it was a while before that. So if they were to hit it together, I think there's a lot of motivation in that Brentford team.
So Wissa and Watkins are the most informed forwards over the last 6 in the Premier League. Then below that is 2 Wolves forwards, Cunha and Strand Larsen. Cunha didn't start in midweek, though. If you were a Cunha owner, would you be a bit worried?
I would be, yeah. I think, he's almost certainly going to get a move in the summer. There might be a bit of protecting him from that, getting other players into the team to give them minutes and see they perform. And with Strand Larsen as well, 14 goals this season for him. Incredible return. Again, no penalties. He's missed some games through injury as well. New signing to the league. So they'll be looking to him next year to lead the line. And I think, again, it's a good option this week.
Who else stands out to you in that? I should also remind viewers that Jamie Vardy won't feature this weekend, so we kind of disregard him from this.
Yeah, as a Chelsea fan, Chris Wood is an interesting one. I find it difficult to recommend him with so much on the line going into Gameweek 38. Danny Welbeck, I think, is quite an interesting one. Spurs, of course, crowned Europa League winners on Wednesday night, and I think it's fair to say they won't be focusing too much on that game on Sunday until maybe Saturday when they get back to the training ground. So I think he's quite a nice one. I expect that game to be quite high scoring, and of course, Brighton still have something to play for as well. As
well as looking at the forwards who are in the best form, we also need to look at the teams they're facing and whether maybe they're one of the leakier defences. So let's take a look at the teams with the worst XG conceded over the last 6 game weeks. No surprise really to see the 2 teams at the top of that, I don't think. As Arsenal travelling to Southampton, I imagine we're all going to kind of want some Arsenal attacking cover. A lot of people have Saka, but in terms of the forwards, it's a bit trickier, isn't it?
It is. It's tricky with the whole team. They've got so many injuries in defence at the moment. Timber's not going to play. Saliba's been ruled out. You look at Saka, could Nwaneri come in potentially and take some minutes off him? Havertz came back. Does he play up top? You want to get one in, but it's really hard to know which one to go for. So it might be best just to avoid altogether.
This does just back up your theory that Evanilson is probably the best forward to bring in this week, doesn't it, Harry, looking at that for Leicester?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk going into the final day about buying players who've got something to play for, and Bournemouth are not one of those teams anymore. But that can work the other way, that they can play free-flowing football. They don't really worry about the conceding goals. It's more about putting on a show in their final home game as well. So looking at this Leicester number, I'm pretty hopeful with Evanilson this week.
Yeah, I imagine you'll be backing Danny Welbeck against Spurs as well. But looking at the other ends of the spectrum, in terms of Manchester City and Villa, the XG conceded at the other end of the spectrum. Have you got Marmoush? I'm trying to think what your forwards
are. I've got Haaland.
Ah, Haaland.
Yeah, so that move looked really, really good when he was starting against Southampton, and I brought him in, and then he blanked in that. And so I've been without Salah for a few weeks, which is always a concern. And then he's blanked, but Haaland hasn't delivered. So I really need something from Haaland. 14.9 million I'm paying for him. He's taken up so much of my budget. It means I can't go to Bowen, for example, who's someone I really want this week. So I'm paying so much for him. So yeah, I need something from the big man.
Would you advise punting on him this week?
No.
No. OK, that's quite simple. Should we move on then? Don't buy Erling Haaland. It's not something we say too often, but as is saying it today, we've also got some great options to pick from for our final captaincy poll of the season. Jarod, Bowen, Mo Salah, Ollie Watkins, Alexander Isak or Bukayo, Saka, or, as always, we're giving you the option of other if you would prefer. Just scan the QR code in the bottom corner of your screen to cast your vote, and we're going to see who you've all been voting for at the end of the show, and it is a really crucial one this week, so it'd be great to see who you're thinking of putting the armband on. And as always, we'll leave the poll up until the deadline closes on Sunday, so you can still vote whenever you are watching. Now, of course, the reason we say the captaincy is so important is because if you are that little bit behind in a mini league, a good captain could make you overtake the person just above you, so make sure you pick the right one. OK, then, we thought we should also discuss the most transferred in player this week, and that is Jarod Bowen. Now, he faces Ipswich away, and he has certainly been on fire in his last 7 appearances. I know, Harry, I'm going to come to you first, because I know he is top of your wish list for this week, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't have him, and he's been the player. As soon as you see that West Ham goal notification come in...
You know it's him, don't you?
You know it's going to be at least him getting the assist, if not probably scoring, as we saw again in Gameweek 37. I don't have him, and if I buy a midfielder this week, he's almost certain to be him.
Would you agree that he should be a priority purchase this week? 12 goals and 10 assists in 33 Premier League appearances in a West Ham side that haven't had the best campaign.
I know, he's been absolutely incredible, and you wonder where they'd be, without him. Obviously, the promoted teams have struggled, but for large periods, West Ham were right down there with them. He's an absolutely incredible player. He's delivering season after season for us in FPL. And I'm really annoyed at myself for not getting him. And I think this game is perfect because Ipswich, final home game, got nothing to lose. They're already down. They're going to attack. And who's going to exploit the gaps behind the defence? It's going to be him. He's top of my wish list as well.
Yeah, 7 attacking returns in his last 7 appearances as well. So he's in brilliant form right now as well, isn't it? It's not a case of we've missed the boat on this one. There is one more opportunity to get on that boat.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at it thinking you've missed the points, looking at Ipswich away on the final day is something to look at and think there are still probably points to come in game week 38. Yeah, 7 returns you can see in his last 7. He looks on great form. There's not really any reason I could come up with not to go with him.
I guess it's an away fixture. Ipswich are at home. But then if we take a look at Ipswich's defensive data over the season, it doesn't really, it just enhances the appeal of Jarod Bowen, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're almost pretty much bottom for every metric you can look at over the season. Conceded way too many goals, conceded way too many chances. That stat at the bottom, conceded 4+ goals. That's the most in the league with 9. I'd be absolutely amazed if Bowen didn't come away from this with points. Whether it's a 15-pointer or whether it's an 8 or a 9, but you're pretty much guaranteed points. Yeah,
they've lost 8 home games in a row in the league too. But would it perhaps surprise you if I told you that he hasn't scored more than 1 in a game all season? In terms of explosive point potential, that suggests he doesn't have that.
Yeah, I suppose West Ham are not that free scoring, and although when they score it's likely to be him, they're not a team that have racked up 3-4 goals that many times this season. So maybe if you're looking at it and you really want someone explosive that's going to get that 15-point haul, maybe it's not him, but he's always got the option to do it. If they do end up scoring 3 goals in this game, you've got to expect him to get a couple of returns in that.
I'm going to use the show to benefit me once again. I've got Kevin De Bruyne. I was readying myself for a potential Bukayo Saka move, but Jarod Bowen has been one that's been in a conversation in my head all season. I've wanted him, as we've kind of all alluded to. Would you recommend that Bowen could be a good replacement potentially for a De Bruyne if you wanted?
De Bruyne's a funny one because a bit like Vardy, they have this big ceremony for him. It looks like it's his final appearance with the way everything's gone on, but then they still have such an important game to play, and he's in their best 11 at the moment. So you'd expect him to play, but also there's a bit of a risk around him. He's a difficult sell, I think. If you're doing it and they both start on the final day, it's a bit of a lottery. I think I'd be tempted to keep De Bruyne.
Well, first thing we do have to talk about is Bukayo Saka. You two own him. I want to own him, I think, but it feels like a bit of a dilemma. Southampton away looks like the perfect fixture, but is Bukayo Saka the perfect player for that fixture?
I'm a bit worried about his minutes. I mean, if he starts, I think he's arguably one of the best captain options this week. Even if he only gets 60, 70 minutes, it's playing the bottom place team. Arsenal are going to want to finish the season with the bang, get as many points as they can. But they've cemented second place now. There's nothing really to play for in this game. He's obviously had that nasty injury that kept him out for so long. I mean, they don't want him to get injured in this and then miss a load of this holiday and then be not well rested going into next season. So there's a chance he misses out completely. He's a difficult purchase, I think, this week. I'm not sure I'd be going for him if I didn't have him.
Are we overthinking this a little bit?
I mean, Bukayo Saka is one of those players that tends to play regardless whether, when he's fit, he plays. That tends to be the first name on the Arsenal team sheet. So I'm slightly more positive that I think he will start this game. Of course, Spurs have just won their European trophy. So the other side of North London will be wanting to finish their season, on a high note to try and take any limelight away from that. I do think he probably starts, but he played only 75 against Newcastle. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that sort of thing.
He's been poor for us though, isn't he? Just not getting any points whatsoever.
Since the wild card in game week 30, I think he scored once for me, and I've been trying to get points in the bank before a lot of people wanted to buy him in game week 38, and we haven't quite got that. So I'm hoping this is the week he finally repays the faith.
Yeah, just 1 goal in 8 matches since his return from injury, and that was in his first game back. That means he's blanked in his last 7 in a row, and the majority of us, I don't know about you, Az, but I bought him back after seeing that goal, wanted to get in early.
So did I, Kelly.
Brought him in, and so we've sat there and enjoyed a lot of 2-pointers, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a funny end of the season for like the Premier picks in the game. The Palmers, Haaland, Salah, Saka, they've all seemed to go off the boil a little bit, and it's frustrating because with Salah and De Bruyne maybe not performing in the last few weeks, that's where we need Saka to deliver some points, and he hasn't.
Are you heartened by the XG though, seeing that he is getting in the positions, and you'd like to think that if he gets in those positions against Southampton, that should provide more points?
Yeah, he's definitely had chances. Particularly, there was a big chance against Liverpool, which he missed, and he's in the right positions.
Don't remind him, look at his face.
Set piece.
Yeah. He's creating chances, he's in the right places. So if he's on the pitch and he starts against Southampton, he's got to be top 3 picks of the game week.
Yeah, I sold him 2 or 3 game weeks ago, but I left exactly enough in the bank to be able to go to him in this final game week. And now it's here, I'm not so sure because of all the reasons we've said. Is there another Arsenal player that you would look to if it's not Saka?
Yeah, I mean, Marino's back, isn't he? Havertz is there and taking minutes, but Marino's been good when he played. So I think he almost certainly starts in that game. So he could be a real differential for you in the attack. But like I said earlier, I'm just not sure it's worth the risk. I think there's other good options from other teams. Bournemouth, we talked about Bowen and other players. So I think I'd probably just avoid.
OK, well, you mentioned differentials then. It's actually time to discuss some differentials of our own. So we asked Harry and as always, to pick their top differential in each position. This is what they came up with. Harry has gone with Milos Kerkez in defence, Gabriel Martinelli in midfield, Jorgen Strand Larsen up front, as Ben White at the back, Antoine Semenyo in midfield, and then up top, unsurprisingly, Brighton fan as has gone for Danny Welbeck. Harry, let's start with you. I love your defensive shout of Kerkez because when I owned him, I owned him. He's been one of the revelations of the season.
Yeah, he's been a really popular pick this season, and their fixtures recently means the ownership's dropped quite a lot. But Leicester at home in what could be his final Bournemouth appearance as well could be, one final shining match for him.
There's a trend in that you've gone for an Arsenal player. You've gone for teams with in defence. I understand you've gone for teams that are playing relegated teams. You've gone with Ben White.
Yeah, and Southampton I think have improved slightly, but still they're not scoring goals at all. And there's no goal scored in the last 3 games. Ben White's definitely going to play because Timber's out, and we saw what he did last season. He was absolutely incredible. And he hasn't played much this season, but he's going to be desperate to show off. There
is no Saliba though in that defence as well. Does that worry about?
Not against Southampton. Respectfully to them, I think it doesn't matter who they put out. I think they're more than capable of keeping a clean sheet in that game.
Keeping with the Arsenal theme, then Martinelli in midfield. We were talking about alternatives for Saka. Could he be one?
Yeah, I think trying to predict who starts up front between Havertz and Marino is a little bit difficult, but I do think Martinelli's had a great season and he should be the one who starts on that left wing in this game. And if you can't get to Saka, you're a little bit worried about him. A nice cheaper option, I think, is Martinelli.
OK, there's a Bournemouth theme in this as well. You've gone with Semenyo in midfield as your differential.
Yeah, against Leicester, no away clean sheet all season, 44 goals conceded. They've conceded the most shots down the left-hand side as well, which is where Semenyo plays. He loves a shot as well. He's going to have loads of shots. It's just, can he
Third most
score?
Shots in the league.
Yeah, he loves it, but he hasn't converted too many. But I think this could be his game.
Why have you gone with him over the likes of Kluivert? Because we were all obsessed with him earlier in the season.
Yes, the minutes with Kluivert, I think he's been taken off early. Not too sure he's going to play the 90 in the games. Evan Nilsson's a great pick up top, but I think Semenyo is probably my pick of the Bournemouth players. OK,
forwards then, you've gone with Strand, Larsen, Harry, and Az has gone with Welbeck. I feel like maybe Welbeck doesn't get enough love, but we're going to start talking about Strand, Larsen. Why have you gone with him?
I think forwards are actually quite difficult this week. Outside of the likes of Alexander Isak, if he's available, and Evan Nilsson and Wissa, who are very transferred in this week, so don't really count as differentials, you're looking for a punt. And Strand Larsen's form recently has been very good. Despite losing against Crystal Palace, he came away with returns in that game on Tuesday night as well. Final home game, and it does look like he's going to be the one who's going to be leading the Wolves line next season as well. So he's a nice cheap price if you're looking for an enabler. So I quite like him as a punt on the final day.
Go on then, give Danny Welbeck some love.
16 seasons, if you look at his FPL history in the year, he's never got 10 goals. This is the first year he's got 10 goals. Best goal scoring record. It's 1 win in 11 for Spurs. They've conceded 16 goals in the last 5 games. But what state are they going to be in after that? And they prioritised the Europa League. They won it. They've been awful in the Premier League. It's going to be a party atmosphere in the stadium. It could go either way. Maybe that spurs them on and they do well, or maybe there's a bit of a hangover.
Spurs them on. See what you did there. OK, then for the final time this season, it is time to see the guys' teams. So we're going to see how they're set. We're going to start with Harry's team. Your current rank just outside the top 6,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's remarkable. Let's take a look at the players that have got you there. This team is pre any transfers, correct? And you've got one.
One transfer.
What's the plan?
So the most boring plan is my defence looks a little bit weak.
No one does a defensive transfer.
I might be that person. I am looking for a little bit of a differential in my defence. So I've got Gabriel, Munoz and Conte. At the moment, as a Chelsea fan, I'm benching double Forest defence just because I can't have any part of me wanting a Forest clean sheet in that game. You've got
to play this game with your head, not your heart.
I know. So I'm looking at Fabian Schär at Newcastle, another differential. The Newcastle defence is quite highly owned, but I like Schär as a bit of a differential within that. The other thing, as you've spoken about, is just doing De Bruyne to Jarod Bowen, which feels the more exciting, more luxury pick. So it's either upgrading the defence in what is a boring more transfer with my head, but with my heart, it's De Bruyne to Bowen.
If you were to bring in Cher, who would you bench?
Oh, it would be Munoz. I've been pretty pleased with Konza recently, Gabriel as well, so it probably would be Munoz. Despite how good he's been, I do expect Liverpool to score some goals in that game.
OK. Watch this space to see if Harry does either of those transfers. What are your plans for Game Week 38?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of overall quite happy with this team.
Doesn't that always scare you when you have this team?
It normally leads to bad things. I mean, the sensible part of me thinks Wood out, to maybe Evan Nilsson or bring in Semenyo, like I mentioned earlier, and play him over Wood. But like Harry, I want Forest to win this game so much, and I want to have that stake in them, and it kind of spurs me to maybe keep him a little bit more than normal. But I'll probably bring in a Bournemouth player.
So Bournemouth midfielder, do you think?
Yeah, either Semenyo or Wood to Evan Nilsson.
Okay.
There's a lot of emotion going on.
There is.
There is
our transfers this week.
38 is about the heart. That's what I'm saying.
OK, well, there is just enough time for us to work out who's going to wear the armband in Game Week 38. And since Mo Salah's dip in form, it does feel like these decisions have been a lot more interesting. There's been a lot more variance, hasn't there? For so long, it was like auto-captain Salah every week. It hasn't been as simple recently, has it?
No, and he hasn't been returning, so we've been correct to look away from him, and Burmo's done well recently. But
this is staggering, isn't it, by the way?
Yeah. His stats recently have definitely not looked nearly as good. But actually, if you've watched the performances, like there was a really big chance missed against Brighton, and if he scores that, I think we're looking at captaincy this week very differently, because he's just coming off a nice return, and then he's got a home fixture on the final day. If he'd have tucked that away, I think he'd be a shoo-in for captaincy for most people this week.
You agree?
Yeah, there was a quote from Slot a few weeks ago where he almost said, "Don't judge us on the next few games. We'll be back for the final game of the season." So I haven't got Salah. I'm worried about this game. This is a big game for him, and he's trying to break records as well. I think he gets a couple of returns probably in this one. Important
to point out that when we are looking at these stats, they're in the last 8 and the other in the previous 29, so it hasn't fallen off quite as badly if you just look at the numbers. By the way, is he going to be your captain, Harry?
Yeah, almost certainly. It's a home fixture. He needs the goals and assists for the record as well.
But I feel like we've been saying that for the last few weeks, and it hasn't converted into points.
Yeah, but I feel like we saw the lineup that they put out against Brighton, that they hasn't been quite the focus on the league since they've won it. I think they've only picked up 1 point in 3 games since then, but feels like there's a little bit of a different atmosphere going into the final game. Being at home, they'll lift the trophy. So I think I'm backing him.
Yeah, 2 teams partying, facing off at Anfield, isn't it? With them playing Crystal Palace. So you haven't got Salah. You don't have the option of captaining him. But would he be the safest pick? If you did have him, would you be captaining him?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I had him, I'd be going there. I mean, I'm not in a great position like Harry is, being that high in the ranks. I need to do something a little bit different.
So is Salah the safe?
Yes.
If you just want to hold rank, you go with Salah. Chasing, and this side of the studio in black definitely are. Who would you go with?
Yeah, well, I think Bowen is the obvious one.
You told me not to bring him in.
Yeah, I think he's the obvious one if you are chasing to go for him. Also, I think Man City potentially. I don't think there's going to be a lot of eyes on De Bruyne and Haaland in particular. So, like I said, I'm paying 14.9 million for Haaland. There's a part of me that thinks you're paying that much money, you should captain him.
You going to do it?
Possibly. There's no one in my team that I think really stands out as being the best option this week without Salah or Bowen. So it could well be him. Potentially, but I'm worried about those minutes. Maybe overthinking, but still a bit worried.
OK, I'm sure this is very unfamiliar for you, but if you were chasing Harry and not protecting rank, I know it's something you're not used to doing, who would you go for as a differential option?
I'm pretty sure my armband would be on Saka. I think I'd take the risk against that Southampton team if I was chasing. OK, well, let's take a look at our poll and see if our viewers actually agree with your captaincy shouts. So far, Jarod Bowen is just ahead of Mo Salah. 7% difference between them at the moment. Jarod Bowen on 34%, Mo Salah 27%. Then it goes Watkins, Saka and Isak. Does that surprise you to see Bowen ahead of Salah?
Yeah, no, I mean, the fixture and the form doesn't really surprise me. Maybe it does a little bit over Salah, but I think people have got a bit frustrated with him over the last few weeks. I think Harry's right, though. If he scores that goal, which was a tap-in against Brighton, that poll looks very different and he's the top.
Yeah, and Ollie Watkins is probably an interesting proposition against Manchester United, who lost the Europa League final. And if Alexander Isak is fit at home to Everton, we might fancy him too. OK, then very quickly, assistant managership. Some people still have that active. Who would you be going for this week?
I think there are a few options. If you're looking for table bonus, you've got Vitor Pereira at home to Brentford, or you've got Ange Postecoglou now with his European trophy at home to Brighton on the final day. If you want to play it a bit safer, the teams we've spoken about, Arteta against Southampton or Iraola against Leicester. OK, a few options for you then. And before we go then, let's check in on the global overall standings. Now, Lovro Budisim from Croatia is leading the way, a 40-point lead at the top over Jack Brennan. Surely that is enough to ensure the world title is in the bag. We'll see on Monday, because we'll be back then with our review show. So both of you guys, you're looking to protect rank. You're going to go with Mo Salah. Yes.
Which way do you think your transfer is going to go?
I think most likely is I go boring, but that Bowen captaincy...
Does that scared you?
That has scared me. That is much higher than I thought it would be, so I might have to buy him.
I think Semenyo in. I might keep Wood, though, and bench Murphy.
You're just doing that to wind him up, aren't
Yeah,
you? And
the main reason.
captain?
Captain, I don't know, Haaland. Let's go Haaland.
Let's just go Haaland because we've got to go. A reminder